I think the three most important things we need to remember if we want to be transformative leaders. One is be passionate and idealistic. We actually have to be driven by our deep sense of values and our own compassion, and we need to be visionary. Two, we need to be fearless. We need to actually embrace fear. Fear is telling us what we love, what we want to be. And three, we need to have empathy and authenticity. Empathy for ourselves and forgiveness and gentleness and the fact that we're going to make mistakes at times. Empathy for the people that we're there to support and walk the journey with. And empathy and respect for the people that we work with, that we see them and treat them as equals, and that we model that every day as leaders. When we're looking at the idea of sustainability and we're looking at that broader global idea around this, refugees are at the moment being positioned as a threat and as a burden. And yet, like we heard earlier today, the greatest anti-poverty measure globally are actually refugees. So if we start shifting to a point where we stop locking up refugees, offshoring refugees, or trying to close our borders, and start seeing refugees as critical to building strong communities, diverse communities, dealing with aging populations, dealing with massive skill shortages, and actually helping strengthen our communities, we're going to have a more sustainable world. One, if we embrace and welcome refugees, but more critically than that, we need to actually end the creation of refugees in the first place. So deeply linked to global sustainability, whether it's climate change or human rights, is going to be getting to the source of what creates refugees in the first place. So how do we tackle the root sources around that? And how do we tackle the fact that poverty and climate change and scarcity of resources is driving ever more things such as war, conflict, and oppression? So what we really want is a world without refugees, and a world without refugees is going to be a far more sustainable world. It's a great challenge around how do we tackle the challenge that people seeking asylum seekers, refugees, are often not viewed as human, are not viewed as worthwhile, are not viewed as deserving of compassion. We're only going to do this, one, by walking a journey together with refugees. So they need to be front and center. We need to be hearing their voices, they need to be leading that conversation, and we need to be coming to that as equals. Can't just have non-refugees or white voices talking about these issues. Secondly, we actually need to reframe the narrative and go back to not using the narrative of the right, a toxic narrative that you're never going to win, but building a new narrative. And one that links people, not to facts and figures. That doesn't change people's emotional relationship to this issue, but back to values. And back to who are we as a society? What does family mean to us? What does the sanctity of life mean to us? What does compassion mean to us? And getting the Australian public to see people seeking asylum, people who are refugees, as people just like me and you, not in some folksy sort of paternalistic way. I mean it in terms of the idea that people who seek asylum are people who are trying to protect their life, like we do every day in our own existence. They are people who love their families, like we do, who want to protect their children, like we do, who actually want a safe, compassionate, free community, like we do. They are refugees because they actually share our values. They are fleeing fundamentalism. So we need to find a way where we're talking not about what they're not. We need to stop using language like they're not illegal, they're not queue jumpers, because we're only reinforcing that narrative. We need to start talking about what they are: resilient, resourceful, entrepreneurial, courageous, heroes, often made to be refugees because of actually standing up for human rights. And we need to stop using the label itself, asylum seeker, as though it's something that defines them. They're actually all these other things that they were before they left: scientist, teacher, doctor, mum, dad, brother, sister, artist, passionate, inspirational, creative human being who in a moment in time is being forced to flee. So it's an experience, not an identity. And we need to stop framing refugees as though it's something like your race or your gender or your sexuality. And we need to start thinking about it as in, this is a temporary moment in time, and what we should be doing is supporting and empowering, facilitating a space where people can go on to thrive again and reclaim who they once were or who they want to be. I think when we're faced with the challenge of how do we stop people disengaging or disconnecting, whether it's the issue of people seeking asylum or other issues, we need to do the following. One, let's not make it too big. Often we're talking in such a desire to show people the significance of something. We talk about 60 million refugees, or climate change will be, irreversible by this year. And what we're actually unintentionally doing is we're overwhelming and disempowering people. We need to be able to take something complex and big and bite-size it. And we need to give people simple touchstones. We need to let people know a couple of things. One, they're powerful. 2, the smallest action helps build a bigger, great, beautiful tsunami of change. 3, start anywhere, it doesn't matter where. 4, nothing is immovable and intractable. And 5, being able to show people how they at their best have something valuable to offer. Often people disconnect because they either go, am I useful? What could I possibly do? The issue's too big. I'm but one person. It's like, that's how everything changes. One person and one person and one person and one person. And suddenly we're an army of change agents. So we need to be thinking in that way. But we as a movement need to make sure we're not sending the wrong messages that actually helps feed that disconnect. And yes, social media's got a valuable role to play in showing people easy ways of engaging the issue, but we need to move beyond an online conversation to how do people take action in their communities. And what we need to do is, that old thing of thinking globally is empowering people around how they can act locally. So where are the touchstones, the influences, the possibilities to shift the debate, the conversation in their own community and empower them in their own community to do that work. Movements like Global Ideas are very important ones because it's about taking young people who are in their formative years of trying to decide, can they lead, what sort of leader they're going to be and where are they going to go, and actually start surrounding them with a nurturing environment that helps act as a catalyst, that connects them to people they might never meet, that helps give them new ideas, new approaches, but also lets them know they're not alone in their passions, in their frustrations, their curiosity and creativity and hope for change. In terms of what change can one do in a weekend at a Global Ideas conference, how much is possible, I think the mistake people make is they think change or great ideas that shift things happen based on quantity, like it's earned over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. The reality is great ideas come in moments, and it's about finding those moments of inspiration. They could happen in a minute, in an hour, in a moment right here and now. So you need to be thinking of it in that way. We make the mistake of thinking innovation comes through our structure, how much time we have, where we have it, who we've brought around the table. And that's why so much the stuff they talk about is not real innovation. Innovation is actually when you're engaged in dealing with the reality at the coalface and are bringing people together who are passionate and care about it and going, at our best, how can we shift this? What are our ideas? And having a safe, open, trusting space, we can all throw our ideas down and see what comes out of it. And then try. Just try, trial and error. If I could go back and visit myself when I was 12, I think it would have been be more gentle on myself, not be so hard on myself, and know it's going to be okay. Because at 12, I did not think I was going to be okay. I didn't think I was ever going to belong or fit in anywhere, and that all the things that made me feel awkward and useless and worthless were all the things that were going to make me successful. So I would have said, don't worry that you feel like a freak and you don't fit in right now. This is going to be the making of you. And that would have been nice to have known back then. I think it's critical when doing any work around leadership and change and human rights, you need to surround yourself with the right people. You need to surround yourself with people that get you, that people that value you, that people that are going to nurture and support you. What you can't afford to have in the long journey are people that are sitting there trying to drag you down, making you feel that you're foolish or too idealistic or out of touch. You want people that are going to be critical and honest with you and not always say yes to you. But you want people that actually share your values and vision because you need a supportive community to do this work, over a lifetime. I think if you're curious about wanting to change the world, and I think if you're passionate about it, you can't always do those sort of things on your own. You need to surround yourself with like-minded spirits, with kindred souls. And I think coming to something like Global Ideas is a beautiful place to start because it connects you to other people where you're sitting around in a room, you're like, I'm not alone. And that moment of feeling like you're not alone in what you care about, when often it can feel quite a lonely journey, is a very powerful and important place to begin. So places like this, I think, are really important as part of that journey.